from time to time. So what a lot of people do if they want to utilize the chat room is they'll listen to it on whatever device, and they'll just mute the chat room or mute the Mixler feed, and they'll just use the chat room. So it's just another way besides Facebook and besides Twitter to stay interactive with the show. Good to see that Joe jumped over and joined my peanut gallery over in the Mixler chat room. All right, guys, we're going to get the show back on track. BJ Rudell, Fantasy Football for Winners, every Thursday around this time, and we're going to do it again. Week 2, fantasy leagues have begun, which means a lot of people have looked at their rosters and said, I spent a second-round pick on that guy? Oh, man, panic has already set in, and it is never too early to start tweaking and changing, and I'll tell you what, one of the biggest things is not being afraid to make changes right away. This is not, much like in the NFL, you cannot marry yourself to where you took a guy in the draft or what he did for you last year and whatnot and so forth. So let's do all of that with the author of Fantasy Football for Winners, my next guest, BJ Rudell. He's with us now. BJ, how you doing?
Good, J-Rock. How are you?
I'm great. Glad to have you with us once again. How did your kickoff week, first week of fantasy, get rolling with you?
It went well. I went 1-0 in each league, partly because in one league I had Ingram and Bradshaw that I took in the 12th and 13th rounds, and they paid off big time. And then in the other one I picked up Alan Hearns 2 hours before kickoff and replaced Brian Quick with Hearns, and I ended up winning by 10, and that was the difference. So it just goes to show, you're talking about second-round picks, and then you get free agents you pick up at the last minute to give you a win, whatever it takes. So how'd you do?
Oh, I took L's. I took L's all the way across. I took L's, man. Very close. They were all close. They were all close. Victor Cruz killed me. I mean, he did, obviously, in most people's leagues could probably say the same thing. Victor Cruz just did nothing for anybody last week. That was a bad one. Pretty much that was my difference maker. I lost in our league. I lost by 6 points, and he was my difference maker for sure. You take a guy in the first, or maybe I took him with the first pick of the second round or whatever. But regardless, you take an elite wide receiver, and he gives you 4 points, and you go, oh, that didn't work out too well.
Yeah, that offense is a mess. Everyone's stock has gone down a little bit. I think Cruz bounces back. I think he's one of those guys that some savvy fantasy owners are going to be trying to wrestle Cruz from people for cheap. But, I think he'll still get his 1,000 yards. It's just, the touchdowns could be few and from trouble moving the ball.
Funny, you're looking at my roster going, I got some guys. Who can I start looking to move before they get a big book on them? You know what I mean? Like, I'm already looking. I'm not going to say them out loud because half of you cats out there listening play in the league, and I'm going to give away my competitive advantage. But I'm willing to trade.
That's right.
I'm willing to trade some of these guys. That's all I'm going to say. But,
the key,
Andrew Luck. Go ahead. Go for it.
The key is to offer a trade to each person without each person knowing it.
That's
and
it.
You're doing it to everybody else. And then whoever replies first, boom. And if somebody else replies and says, I'm in, you just say, you know what, I changed my mind. Sorry, I re-examined it. That's good. But I'm never coy about making trades. If you want to do it, if you want to get rid of a guy, get rid of him.
I'm going to tell you right now, I took the Chiefs' defense. It was the defense that I drafted later in the draft, and I'm just going to let you know now I'm going to keep them on my bench for a week or two and see if they wake up. But I have no connection to that defense whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I grabbed the Titans' defense first thing earlier this week just because, I know they had a big performance last week, but they've got Dallas, and I think Dallas is a mess, and I think there's an opportunity there. But I went and quickly snatched up Jermaine Gresham, too, because as soon as Eifert went down, that pretty much took away your handcuff there. So I said, man, I think Gresham, I actually put him in my flex spot here this week just because I anticipate him being a much bigger part of that offense.
Yeah, you're a bold game caller there on the fantasy sidelines. So Gresham could be the number 3 target in Cincinnati behind Mohamed Sanu and A.J. Green. That Gresham came out of college and he looked like a guy who was going to be a transformative tight end. He's had his great moments, and the one thing I'll say about Gresham is he's a very good red zone goal line target. And if you've got a guy like Gresham and you're not in a PPR league, he's a decent option at tight end this week. But if you are in a PPR league, he's not a guy who's going to rack up more than about 3 or 4 catches per game. You just got to hope he gets in the end zone.
And that's what I was kind of hoping for there. I've got him, and I'm holding on to Zach Ertz. I think he's going to turn out to be, especially because it looks like now he's going to be the primary target. You weren't sure if the tight ends, if Selleck was going to split with him down there, but it looks like Ertz is going to get all the red zone stuff, so I like him. I got a question. Now, I know he's on my team, but it's what brings it to my mind. But I know there's a lot of people that are asking themselves right now, I went high. They probably went high on Zach Stacy, too. I know I got him in one of the earlier rounds. I don't remember exactly how high I took him. But a lot of people worried, not just about him, but about anything with St. Louis Rams next to it right now because with the loss of Bradford, that offense looks like it could be a disaster all season long.
Yeah, you hope they don't go to a third-string situation, and, Case Keenum is not the answer, and I'll tell you, it's like Brian Quick and Kenny Britt, who Quick has made great strides this offseason and came into the season with high hopes, I think, speaking on the fantasy sidelines, of being an every other week flex option, like 70 yards, 80 yards most of the time with the occasional touchdown. But once you get that downgrading, if you're not getting as consistent red zone targets and not getting as many touchdowns the way it should, it's going to be harder to get those big completions, those big yardage, the big points, and you're looking at a cap of about 8, not good enough for, in smaller 10 or 12.
So I'll tell you what, a lot of people, and you know what, I mentioned it earlier, before I get into specifics for this week, I mean, when is too early to start looking at making trades? Because I mentioned how a lot of people say, I think I've seen you tweeted as well, that the ones that that win are proactive. They're making moves and switching things around right away, not waiting until week 6 and holding on to hope that, this is the season that, Larry Johnson comes and bounces back or whatever.
That's right.
Look, That's what I mean? Johnson and waited,
After his hiatus, and he comes back, and he's never the same. Yeah.
How long do you wait, though? How long do you sit tight with guys like a Zach Stacy, with guys where you're going, man, this guy was something I was banking on? You don't want to bail in week 2, or do you?
Yeah, if you've got a short bench, like a 4-3-person bench, and you have to start making moves before the bye weeks kick in, you're kind of stuck. And that's why I'm a big proponent of lobbying for larger benches, because I feel like it gives me more flexibility. If you're in a situation where you have a decent-sized bench and you can stash Stacy or start him in a good matchup, I still think Stacy's going to bring good value. Doesn't mean I didn't pick up Benny Cunningham the first chance I got, and so I've got that backup.
Do you think he's going to suck some of those carries away from him? Think Cunningham's something to worry about?
Yeah, I think it is something to worry about. But if the offense can start to gel around whichever quarterback is going to lead this team this year, I think there's enough room for Stacy to still have value. The mistake that people make is that they bail too quickly on guys who have bad first or second weeks, and then they pounce too quickly on guys who have one good week. And it's the whole, people are selling low and buying high. You're going to lose money if you do that in the stock market. The same thing with fantasy sports. Last year, after week 1, I traded Jared Cook, who had 141 yards and 1 or 2 touchdowns. I forgot what. He was the highest scoring tight end that week. Traded him and Marquise Colston and one other guy for Des Bryant, who had a terrible week 1, and 2 other guys I can't even tell you what their names were. But the point is, I gave up 3 guys who were not every week starters for Des Bryant. And that's because the guy who had Des Bryant looked at what Jared Cook did, and he's saying, I want that. And he's looking at what Des Bryant did and said, I paid way too much for Des Bryant. So if you can capitalize, that's the way to win.
Now, I will say, and I don't think this was in the Sports Fix League, but I did bail on a guy that I took a risk on because he's going to be big this year, Jordan Reed. I had a roster crunch. I really had to make a move to take somebody on, and I wanted to pick up Terrence West because I know he's going to be starting for the next couple of weeks, and I needed to shore up my running back position. But Reed, not only am I worried about what role he's going to get there, but he's banged up, and anytime I hear the word hamstring or quad with tight ends and wide receivers and running backs, I bail because it seems like you end up with, like Miles Austin the last few years where he plays a week or 2 and then sits all season long.
Yep. You're right to have those concerns. I was very high on Jordan Reed. I remain very high on Jordan Reed when he's on the field. I was in a similar boat. I drafted him around the 6th round of a 12-team league back in July. one of the 2 leagues I'm in, and I had to make a decision. I've got a bench of about 5 guys, and I had to decide what to do, and I dropped my backup quarterback, Cam Newton, so I could pick up a tight end, Travis Kelce, in Kansas City. And I'm going to ride Kelce as long as I can until Reed gets healthy. I think Kelce's a decent backup to have at this point. He should get more involved in the offense. But you're absolutely right. Tough decisions have to be made when you've got a starter that isn't starting early in the season.
Absolutely. All right, let's look at this week now, some of the specifics. I know the first game is tonight here. You've got Baltimore and Pittsburgh, but looking around, I guess, who are some red lights to you? And you talk about guys that flash big in week 1. Give me a couple of guys that you think are going to be good starts this week and a couple of guys that are going to be the example of what you said with, hey, this guy had a huge first week. People are jumping on and signing him and grabbing him left and right, and it was an aberration, you know?
I'm glad you asked. Terrence West, I think that's a great call. He should be the guy. He had a bad preseason in terms of what was expected of him, but he had a great shot to wrest control of the starting gig with Ben Tate's sideline. I think Keenan Allen and Torrey Smith, you've got people who are down on these guys when they shouldn't be. Keenan Allen will lead his team in receptions and touchdowns, and Torrey Smith will do the same in Baltimore. And I said Travis Kelce, he's going to get more involved in the Chiefs' offense. They desperately need a number 2 option next to Dwayne Bowe. Donnie Avery is just not the answer long term. He's had several years to get better, and Avery's pretty much capped out. And Kelce's a 24-year-old tight end who should be making waves in his first full season. As far as the guys that I don't buy into, I don't buy into Steve Smith, 36-year-old veteran. He had a huge day. One of them was a big completion play. I'm not buying Smith as the guy in Baltimore, and I've seen all these Twitter, posts, all these tweets of, should I start Steve Smith or Andre? Steve Smith is second fiddle in that offense, and third fiddle probably by mid-season if Marlon Brown or Dennis Pitta get going. So I'm not a big fan. Steve Smith is more of a possession receiver, and I think he's easy to take out. Torrey Smith, not so much. And I think the Justin Forsett bandwagon is getting a little bit too heavy. I think it's going to fall under its own weight. Forsett, at best, is a 12 to 14 touch guy. He's not an every down back. He's never been an every down back. Bernard Pierce will get touches in that offense. The third stringer in Baltimore will get touches, and Flacco will air it out. And Forsett, at best, is a poor man's Darren Sproles. And that means you're looking at about 6 to 8 points in standard leagues at best case scenario. And so I'm very discouraged by hearing people just, pushing that narrative of saying Justin Forsett, all the reasons why. I've got people tweeting me saying, should I start Justin Forsett or, pick your poison, not Aaron Foster, but someone like Drake Bell or someone like that. I say start Drake Bell, and then they come back at me and say, but here's why I should start Forsett. And my response is, if you think you should start him, start him. But I wouldn't do it.
I hear you there, And a question, too, and again, this is something that I drafted him, and I moved. He's now in my starting lineup. I think I'm safe. I just wanted to wait 1 week and confirm it. But Carlos Hyde, I think anybody that took him had it confirmed that he's going to be, not only is he going to be a part of that offense, here's the number that's got me going, man. I'm telling you, not just as a fantasy player, but as a player. 4 yards, basically, 3.8 or whatever, yards after contact per rushing attempt by Hyde. I mean, that's getting 4 yards after the first guy hits you, and that's what we've known that he does in college. That's what he's known for. But I think you can clearly see that slowly this season, and it's already started, he's going to become the primary back there for San Francisco.
Yeah, he's a huge play, and I tried to get him in both of my drafts. I fell short because he went earlier than I expected. He was going in the 7th, 8th round. I was targeting him in the 10th or 11th. So there were people in the draft smarter than me who were able to get him, and I think they're going to benefit in a big way when it's all said and done. Hyde has top 25 running back written all over him. The fact that he did what he did last week, despite the fact that Frank Gore played a pretty full game, speaks volumes about what Hyde can do in that offense.
Yep, that's where I'm at, too. All right, another one for you, question mark, for people that have him, and actually, at least one of my leagues, as of last night, he's not even on a roster. Jake Locker, big first performance, 22 completion.